who was selling his guitar. He had I think it was a 69 SG with the tremolo. And he wanted to sell it. He said, "You want it?" And I said, "Yeah." "How much you want?" He said, $200. So I begged my mom and, did chores, did whatever I could. And she said, yeah. She bought me my first real guitar.
When I went to go see the Hendrix movie, I remember going back to my home and digging out this guitar that was in my closet that I didn't really touch. I remember buying the guitar and kind of fooling around with it for a little bit, and just kind of putting it in the closet and just not really paying much attention to it until after seeing that movie. Then I went straight back to the closet, took the thing out, and looked at it, and I remember saying to myself, "Okay, I'm gonna learn how to play you." There was nothing else in my life that had ever inspired me to just sit down and just do one thing, just like Guitar Head. And it was just an amazing moment for me, because at that point, all I wanted to do was just play guitar and learn how to play it as well as I possibly could. And not a whole lot of people know this, but I wrote this riff when I was 16 years old, and it's still with us to this day.
I'd be working at the sticker factory, cutting stock and just thinking of riffs or lyrics or something. At lunchtime, I'd be out in the car with my guitar, writing some riffs, and oh shoot, I got to get back to work.
And I love the guitar for that reason. I mean, I just think it's one of the best things that I've ever discovered in my life.
I was pretty much afraid of everything, afraid of the world, afraid of speaking, really, really shy kid. Music was a way to speak, as simple as that. Even here, just sitting playing and forget you guys are here. Somehow the world goes away. Whether that's good or bad, it's difficult to come out of sometimes. But, that's the curse of it. But the blessing is sense of communication, sense of creation. That's a reason. That's a reason I'm here. There's times when I haven't played for a couple weeks, and my wife will say, "God, you're grumpy. Go play guitar." It's like, "Oh yeah," and I'll go and I'll play, and then I feel better now. It's my coffee in the morning.
A pick is actually the biggest amplifier that there is. But then, after a few years of doing that, I learned to finger pick because I started playing in folk places. You start doing this slow thumb and finger thing. You can just hold a chord with the left hand, like a C chord there, and you can go, which sounds quite a lot, really. It's kind of impressive, considering the fact your left hand's not doing anything, it's just holding this chord. And then the idea is that you can go on developing that, and then maybe you pick out a little bit of a tune at the same time, so you're accompanying yourself. The first time I got a Fender Stratocaster, it was after I'd got Dire Straits going, and it was my lust object as a child. And when I heard the sound of it, when I wrote Sultans of Swing, for instance, I'd written it on an acoustic guitar, and it was different, the sound of the strings together and the tonality of the guitar made me want to write another way. This is an old Les Paul. It's a 58. Everything seemed to come right about this time. If you get to the end of a vocal and you've got nothing more to say, but maybe the guitar has, and you wanted something, maybe a richer sound, well, then I'd probably use something like this. So that thicker tone.
A gitár az a hangszer, ami az elmúlt 40 év alatt az összes hangszer között a legtöbbet fejlődött. Hát gondoljunk csak arra, hogy eredetileg ilyen mindenféle ilyen ócska deszkákon játszottak annak idején, nem tudták erősíteni, stb. És úgy tudom, hogy az első hangszedőt, amit beépítettek egy ilyen gitárba, azt egy rúzsos dobozba rakták be annak idején. Ez egy nagyon érdekes, állítólag megvan a hangszer a mai napig, a Jimmy Page tulajdona, és meg lehet nézni itt a testen, ez halál érdekes dolog, itt a testen egy fém rúzsos doboznak a tokja látható, és abba rakták a tekercseket, és úgy rögzítették a hangot.
You know, sitting in your room for like 7 to 10 hours a day and playing. And every day when I was like, I don't know, still sometimes. So if I can get the chance, I do. I remember when I was like a teenager, I used to get home and play for hours, like 7 or 8, 10 hours a day, and like I'd realize, damn, time just flew by. And like I'd be like, damn, I gotta eat something, you know? Or...
Mondanom se kell, hogy minden nap kell gitározni, tehát úgy nem lehet fejlődni, úgy nem lehet eljutni valamilyen szintre, hogy az ember heti 1 alkalommal vagy 2 alkalommal neki durálja magát, és mit tudom, 2-3 órát foglalkozik a dologgal, majd az egészet elfelejti, és a jövő héten majd egyszer csak megint nekiugrik. Ez így nem működik. Alapvető fontosságú tényező az, hogy minden nap gitározzatok. Minden nap gitározzatok, már mint kezdők is, legalább 1, de inkább 2 órát azok is, akik most vettek kezükbe életükben először gitárt. Aki pedig már ehhez képest haladónak tartja magát, vagy haladónak mondható, ott azért illik a napi 3 órát tartani még a legelején is. Aztán később ezt lehet növelni is, a csillagos ég a határ, meg amíg nem szól anyukátok, vagy a feleségetek, vagy a barátnőtök, hogy most már elég.
I grew up like in a country where, you know, a musician wasn't really like something that, you know, the society supported. East Germany was all about sport. And so for me, the only thing that made me survive actually was a tape that I had from AC/DC. That was like my bridge to the outside, you know. I was listening to this tape like for years and years and years, you know. I remember that my music teacher called my parents and said, well, this boy has a lot of rhythm talent actually, you know. And I had like at this time like a lot of friends, you know, and they were always like going to Czechoslovakia. And I saw this beautiful acoustic guitar. And I knew at this time that, you know, you couldn't buy an instrument like in East Germany, so I just bought a guitar to sell it, more for like a business thing, you know. So this one girl was like seeing me with the guitar and saying, listen, you know, you have a guitar, can you play something? I was like, I can't really play, you know, I was just bored, and she didn't believe me, and she got really on my nerve. It's like, come on, play something, you know. And I was like, and I took the guitar, and it's like, I can't play, and she was like, oh, that's beautiful. And I was like, realizing something. There was something in the air. And all of a sudden I realized it can't be that hard to learn an instrument, you know. And then from this day on, actually, I practiced like probably 8 hours a day. And we had one music school like in our city, and it was really hard to get in, you know. And I remember I just walked in there, and I played this one song from UFO, Dr. Please. They looked at me and I come from a different planet, you know, because it was more like kind of a jazz-oriented kind of place. I guess they liked my attitude or something. I definitely wasn't as good as anyone else, and so that's where I actually started to learn music or like jazz guitar, you know. But I realized really early in my life that I couldn't play other songs, so what I did, I just started to create my own songs. You know, that's what I like about music, be creative and create your own songs. So that was my start in playing guitar. Well, it's one of those cliché stories, you know. I remember it was the first time at a convention in Frankfurt. It was the first time I ever been to a convention at all in my life. And like I saw all those guitars lying around, and I fell in love. There was this ESP guitar 901. I remember to this day, I was like sneaking around this guitar, and people probably thought I was trying to steal it or something. Because I would like walk around and grab it, like put it back and walk around and grab it again. And I really fell in love with this guitar. You know, and then I bought this guitar, I still have it. And since then I stayed with ESP, you know. There's something about ESP I like. I'm a guy that loves loyalty, you know. And I think like one of the biggest strengths in ESP is like that you see You know, like music, a lot of people come and go. What I like about this company that they're even like, if you're not hip anymore, they're still there for you. So I appreciate that, for example, you know. Besides, I created my own guitar, basically, which is always a dream, you know, kind of for a guitar player, obviously. And it was funny because like I had this special idea in my head like a long time ago, because like our shows, I would say, kind of pyro-oriented. And I was trying to explain to people in Japan, like, you know, I want to have a guitar that looks like burned. So, and they're like, well, how can we do that? It's like, you would just take the guitar, put it in the oven, and I could take it out. And they wouldn't do that.
I would say that the acoustic guitar is the most important thing for a guitar player to start with. Learn the feel and the touch of that string and what it does against the fret. Learn that, then you can add the effects later on, you know. You want to be a guitar player, you have to have your grounding. It's like anywhere else. I mean, an astronaut doesn't start in space, you know. Somebody's got to build a rocket.
Around to a local music school, I didn't have an instrument, and went in there and talked to the teacher, and I said, you know, I want to learn how to play bass. And he just sat me down and tried to ask me a few questions, trying to sort of figure out what it was that I was really getting at, what I wanted to achieve. And while he was talking to me, he was playing some Eric Clapton licks, I think Cream licks on electric guitar. And I was like, that's what I want to do, because I really didn't know that much about guitar at the time. And so that was it. And then I switched over to guitar, and my grandmother gave me a beat up old Spanish acoustic that had one string on it. I started learning on the one string. There was no stopping me at that point. I was so obsessed with it. No matter what obstacles or hurdles there were, I never accepted no for an answer, and I just kept at it. And the first electric guitar I ever bought was a Les Paul copy. And a lot of guitar players that I liked played Les Pauls. So it was, I think essentially it was just a cool looking guitar that I gravitated towards. And then over the next couple of years, I trial and error with a lot of different styles of guitars. And at that point, I started to really identify more with a guy playing a Les Paul and what that sounds like, and a guy playing a Strat and what that sounds like. And I just ended up naturally and comfortably back with a Les Paul, and it's just always been a tonal thing that just sort of speaks to me. You know, I love the sound of a lot of guitars, but I don't feel as at home with any other guitar besides Les Paul. My manager gave me basically it was a copy of a Les Paul 59. So at that time, I don't know if they were doing 59 reissues, but it was this really beautiful handmade 59 copy, basically. And so I used that for that album, and consequently, many albums since then. And so at one point went to Gibson, I said, well, why don't we make a real Gibson copy of a Gibson copy? So basically the Slash Les Paul is modeled after the 59 copy of a Les Paul that I've had since 1986.
Yeah. Picked up a guitar, literally started playing it like this, like Jeff Healey almost. And then he was like, no, take it, put it on your lap, play it like this, and then check out these guitar magazines. And the first one I kind of gravitated towards was a magazine that had the tab for Cotton Amash by Anthrax. And that was the first riff I ever learned. And I remember learning it like, and then eventually learned to flip my hand around and
if you're a little guy and you're playing a big chord, you got like a bit of a stretch, you know, and you see some guys because they got big long fingers, like an Eric Clapton or something, you know, they got this big finger stretch, you know, almost it looks better their fingers for piano or something, you know? And when you're a little guy, you know, you sort of got to try and compensate, you know. And Malcolm and myself, if it was a major, like a major A chord, we would do. So we would little chord. Even in the track Thunderstruck, when it was the same thing. It'd come up like a, you know, it started like a one-handed, you know. So it started that way, you know, and then you know, you'd end up, you know. Well, if you look, it's got a kind of devil. See the little horns? It's got a little red devil, you know. One of the big collector items for a lot of years was the Les Paul Gibsons, you know, with the single cutaway, and this was all solid, and but a very heavy guitar. And if you're a little guy like me, you know, they can give you hip displacement, you know. And so I always thought the SG was a lighter guitar because you could just pick it up like this. Yeah. But I think now I've got hundreds of them, you know, and a bit different, you know, some custom, some with, you know, like 3 pickups, some with 2, some like this, just a knockabout.